You're listening to the Jersey Guys Podcast, the show that talks about hard rock, heavy metal, AOR, and West Coast music. In-depth conversation and special guests are always on tap, so settle in and turn it up. Now, here are your hosts, Tom and Mark.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jersey Guys Podcast. This is Mark Ballo, and I'm here with my co-host Tom Coyne. And today we've got special guest Kenny Dubman. Some of you guys know him from Prophet, of course, but he's got a solo career for about the last 5 years. So we're going to talk about everything today. Kenny, hey, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Not too much. We're good. So
awesome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. It's for sure. I figured what we would do is we would start, and Tom and I talked about this prior to coming on air. We said, how are we going to structure this interview? And we said, I said, let's start with your solo career of the last 5 years or so. And we'll talk about that. And I know you've got a new album coming out too, next year, right?
I do.
Good.
Probably going to hold off maybe 2 months, and then I'm going to let it roll.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, let's start with when you went solo. I mean, obviously, there's a long history that you have with the band Prophet, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But let's start with the solo career that you've had here for the last 5 years or so. In 2016, you released your first solo album, which was Reckless Abandon, right?
Correct. That's right.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that. How did that whole process come about to actually record a solo album?
Well, it was actually an interesting genesis the way that went down. I had gone through like a long, rough period in my personal life. Like divorce and a kind of a rough rebound and everything like that. And it was kind of a low for me. So when I got clear of all that and just started kind of regrouping, I would just sit, and work, my day gig at a computer every day and just like listen to music. I'd go on YouTube and like pick a particular album. Sometimes I'd know a band, sometimes I didn't know a band. During the course of that, the ensuing, I don't know, it was about 14 months, I ran into the Whippoorwill album by Blackberry Smoke. And I clicked on it. I'd never heard of the band. I listened to it and I was like, hey, that was pretty good. Next day I sat down and I said, you know what, I'm going to give this another listen. A year later, I was still listening to it every single day, if not once or twice a day. And shortly after that, I started to, pick up the guitar and like ideas would come to me and I would put them down. And that kept happening and it kept happening and kept happening. And I really liked the stuff that was coming out. So eventually, a few months down the road, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do a record. And it was directly linked, believe it or not, to me just running into that Blackberry Smoke album because I was kind of disconnected from, music and caring that much about music and caring at all about creating music. And when I found that record, I said to myself, like, these guys are writing songs this good. And this is like straight up rock and roll, Southern rock, boogie. I said, if they're out there doing it, and I'm getting these ideas, why shouldn't I just go do it again? So that's how that all came about.
Right.
And went back in the studio, did that record. And then from that point on, when I first started writing, and that was, I guess, around 2014, I want to say, the ideas just never stopped. It just never stopped coming. So when they come, I capture them. And, the ones that I really think are good enough will end up as a full song.
Now, the Reckless Abandon album and the sound of you mentioned the Southern rock influence there and Blackberry Smoke. It's your sound and your solo sound. It's very organic. It's really good. It's hard driving. It's bluesy a little bit. It's got a Southern rock feel to it. I really like the album and I enjoyed it. And I actually got to see you live. I think it was 2018 at the Saint in Asbury Park.
Oh yeah, we did a couple shows there. It was a really good time. Did you have to catch the show with? I'm trying to think if we did one or two there. I know that the one we did with Matt O'Ree on guitar and
yes.
John Hemmel on drums. Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a great show. I mean, and you got, like you said, you had Matt O'Ree on guitar with you. John Hummel was the drummer, right?
Yeah.
To me, the second coming of Bonzo, you know? I mean, that guy is an unbelievable drummer.
He really is ridiculous, man. And it's so funny because his personality completely belies his drumming style. He's the most quiet, laid back, sweetest guy you'd ever want to meet.
Really?
Then he gets behind the kit and he's just an absolute beast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen him a few times with a few different bands, and I'm always blown away seeing him. I think you had Matt Wade on keyboards that night?
Yeah, Matt Wade on keyboards, who is just, and Matt O'Ree introduced me to Matt, and said he might be a good fit for the show. And, I'd never seen him or heard of him, but I heard this guy play, and he's an absolute beast as well. Yeah. Just an incredible, incredible musician.
I've seen him a few times with Dana Fuchs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her.
I totally am, and she's a great singer.
Yes, yeah, great show. So she does a great show, and I've seen her. I saw her just back in August, actually, and a few times years prior to that.
I've not seen her live, but I would love to. And Matt Wade is touring with Samantha Fish right now. Pretty good gig.
That's right. But yeah, that was a great show. But I thought that was great. I also saw you at the Stone Pony when you opened for Bat, which was the Paul Crook and the Meatloaf band.
Oh, you were at that one. That was a good time, man. I really enjoyed that show.
Now that was a solo acoustic show, right?
It was actually I had my partner Richie on second acoustic guitar with me that night.
Right. Now that basically, I forget what year that actually was, but the second thing you put out after Reckless Abandon was 2018. You did American Songbook, which was a live acoustic album, right?
Yep, that is correct. We went with the acoustic format, the acoustic live thing, just because I really didn't have the money to go in and do a whole new studio album. It's insanely expensive. I financed the whole thing. That was the way to go with that, I thought. Turned out when it came out, nobody really gave it too well. I don't want to say nobody, but the majority of people just kind of ignored it because it was acoustic record. Mm-hmm. If I had put that out as a full electric album, I think it would have got a lot more attention.
Right.
So what are you going to do? You can live and learn. I thought that it would stand on the merits of the songs, but it's not like I'm an established artist that had sold, millions of albums that, you put something out and people just want to hear it no matter what it is. People that were into Reckless Abandon wanted to hear another, full electric album.
Right.
So, it is what it is. I would love at some point to totally go back and redo that whole album as an electric album because I really like the songs.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Now, well, you talk about going back to full electric. Now, I just saw last week, I think on your Facebook page, where you mentioned that you actually just completed work on a brand new album that's going to come out early next year.
Just literally a week ago, we did the last mix. The album is called Conflicted. Got some really good guys playing on it. I got my bass player Eric Winicky and my drummer Joe Palia, who both played on Reckless Abandon. I have Rob Cloris on keys, who's just fantastic. One of the best Hammond players I've ever gotten to work with. Yeah, so it's four of us, and now I have Dave DiPietro, who plays in my live band, Dave from TT Quick, among other bands. He did not play on the record, but he will be doing all the shows with us.
Oh, wow, great. I think you mentioned also you had some other special guests doing some guitar solos on that. Can you share that a little bit?
Yeah, we got some pretty big heavyweights. We got Zach Wilde and Scotty Hill. Zach, of course, from Ozzy and Black Label Society, and Scotty from Skid Row. Right. Now, I've been friends with those guys since the 80s, so to call them up and to get them to commit to playing solos on my stuff was, it was kind of a no-brainer. I knew they would say yes. Mm-hmm. Charlie, I didn't really know that well. We're friendly. We're introduced by a mutual friend.
Now, who's this?
And, being Charlie from Blackberry Smoke, Charlie Starr.
Oh, okay.
He's the primary songwriter and lead singer and, one of the guitar players. Plays quite a few of the leads. I just have an insane amount of respect for him as a songwriter because, as I said before, their album, The Whippoorwill, kind of triggered me back into songwriting. So I just figured I'd just walk out on a long limb and just ask him, and he said yes.
Oh, wow.
So all three of those guys did just monster jobs on the guitar solos they did. So really, really, really excited about it. Couldn't be happier.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to that. I know you mentioned something about, if you like, the hard driving guitars and Hammond, then this is going to be right up your alley, and I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, man. I don't want to sit here and blow my own horn about these songs, but this is definitely some of the best stuff I've ever done, and people, I know they're gonna like it. I know it's gonna meet with some, pretty favorable acceptance. And I'm so itching to just put it out right now, but there's stuff I have to get in place first before I can do it. So
yeah,
just have to chill out and wait.
Now, I want to ask you something, and I was listening to just the last week as we were preparing for this, and I went back to the solo albums again and started listening to them again, and it hit me, and I kind of said, you know what? And by the way, you are the lead singer, as opposed, also in addition to being the guitar player on your solo material, of course. But in listening to your vocal style, I could hear a little bit of like Joe Walsh meets like Warren Haynes. You think that's something that's accurate, or are they influences?
Well, first of all, it's a big compliment. Both of those guys are awesome singers. I've heard that before. I've heard references to a little bit of Joe Walsh. Haven't heard Warren Haynes. Warren, of course, I listened to a ton of, both in Allman Brothers and Government Mule. Seen him play live a bunch of times. So I guess I couldn't help but be influenced. When I write a vocal line or, do vocal takes in the studio or whatever, it's not really thinking well, I'm gonna lay this guy on, this tune and this guy on the other. Just, it's sort of whatever comes out. So I think my vocal style is just a kind of an amalgamation of everyone that I've ever dug and everyone I've ever listened to.
Have you ever sang before in any bands?
I'll take those two guys any day of the week, man. That's a huge compliment. So thank you.
You're welcome. Have you ever sang before in any bands prior?
I kind of honed my vocal chops over the years in playing with Edgar Cayce, the Edgar Cayce band, which was a cover band like Post Profit.
Sure, we're going to get into that for sure.
Did a lot of lead singing in that band, and then I've done tons and tons of, acoustic duo gigs, just doing covers. So it's a lot of years of singing, and if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have been ready to, step up and sing lead on my own stuff for sure.
Now,
so it's just doing it, doing it for a long time and doing it a lot of nights.
Right. And you're gotten extremely comfortable with it, obviously.
I'm comfortable with it. Whether I can, deliver on any given night is a different story. I still don't really consider myself a singer. I'm a guitar player who sings out of necessity. So, I just do the best I can. I try to warm up, before live shows, try not to talk. Talking will kill your voice. If you're talking to people in the crowd, before you go on for an hour, you're done.
For sure.
Absolute toast.
But don't forget, Ken, Gary Moore was a guitar player that sang out of necessity too. So,
well, I think there's a lot of us out there,
right?
That just do it. You've played with lead singers, you've tried it before, and you just rather pilot your own ship. That's how it comes about. So, with a lot of humility, I just do it and hope it works.
Right. Now, where you got the new solo album coming out early next year. You have the two previous albums. Where can people check this out? Do you have a website or a Facebook page?
It's gonna when I put it out, it's gonna be everywhere. I mean, it's gonna be on all the digital platforms. You can get CDs on CD Baby. There'll be links to all that on my own website, so it won't be hard to find. Trust me.
Okay, great.
It'll be out there. I'll have billboards up all over the state. No, just kidding.
All along the turnpike in the park.
Social media obviously is, the billboard for modern times. So there'll be no doubt about where to find it.
What we could do is maybe you could make up some of those little placards. You put them on the parkway and the turnpike toll booths like they do at the Art Center.
Yeah, and then from the summertime, I'll get planes to fly by with banners.
They're over the beaches, right? There you go.
Yeah, there's going to be no stone will be unturned.
Excellent, very good. So now that we've kind of covered your solo career a little bit, we want to get back in, and Tom and I are both huge Prophet fans from way back. Personally,
Right on.
I came into knowing and being aware of Prophet in 1988 with the Cycle of the Moon album, and then going back later and discovering the first album. But I would say if you had to ask me personally, if you asked me my top 5 bands, Prophet would definitely be in there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. Appreciate that.
I can't say that, Ken, because I'm too old to be able to put you guys in my top 5. But
That's okay. Because I know we're number 6, so it's all good.
They're right. So Tom, did you want to, I know we talked about this before we went on air. Did you have some stuff you wanted to start with as far as the Prophet days?
Well, I have a lot of questions that I wanted to ask about the first album because there was a lineup change and kind of a different sense of direction in the second album. So I really had wanted to ask how the first lineup came about. And
yeah, of course. Well, you guys both know that Prophet was a cover band for a lot of years before ever setting foot in the studio.
Right.
So, I mean, the cover band had a lot of lineup changes, and first album hit, and then second album, and then everything just keeps changing. We changed a lot of people. Not always because we wanted to, so sometimes it was necessity. But I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue on the first album lineup.
So Dean Fasano was the singer. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, a very Kansas influenced.
No doubt.
Okay.
The band, we were all very Scott Metaxas, Joe Zukowski, and I were all, we did a bunch of Kansas over the years as a cover band, and they were always one of our favorite bands, as far as the songs they wrote. So there was no way that our first record wasn't going to come out with at least a little bit of Kansas influence. Now, when you add Dean Fasano into the mix, he, to me, always sounded like a combination between Stevie Wonder and Steve Walsh. So you have a singer that sounds a little bit like Steve Walsh. You have, a lot of Kansas influence in the players. Mm-hmm. You're going to get some Kansas coming out in that first record for sure.
I'm glad you admitted to that because we have done interviews with people where I'll say, well, your band sounded like so-and-so, and they'll say, oh, no, they didn't. We didn't cover that band. We were, but I was listening to the record today, and the songs are just, every song is great. But the Kansas influences are there, and, why not?
No doubt. And, what? I would, I'll cop to anything. It obviously it wasn't intentional, but we listened to a lot of it, and sure, a lot of it came out in the, a lot of that influence came out in the songwriting. Just it was a natural thing, and to be compared to a band like that, like I said before, I'll take that any day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Now, in addition to, you mentioned Dean Fasano being the singer on that first album, which changed later on with the second album, but you also had your drummer was Ted Pulley. On the first album, right?
Yes. Yep. We had Ted Pulley in the band. I'm still friendly with Ted. I still talk to him. He's a trip.
Now you go way back with Ted, though. Were you in a band prior?
Yeah, Ted and I were in a high school band together when I was 15 and he was 16.
Wow.
Yeah. So our history goes way back. We have a lot of crazy stories about some crazy shit we did when we were kids.
Hey, the name of our podcast is the Jersey Guys, and you're both Jersey guys, so we understand.
No doubt.
That.
You guys are Jersey guys. I'm actually a bogus Jersey guy. I just moved out here 5 months ago.
From where?
I'm from Brooklyn.
Oh, that's all right. That's still part of the whole.
Right.
That's part of the scene.
Yeah.
Prophet spent a lot of time in Brooklyn at L'Amour's back in the day. So.
Exactly. So what I wanted to ask you also about that record was...
record.
That record.
About that record.
That's the Brooklyn accent.
Sure is, buddy.
What was the distribution like on that? Because honestly, we were talking about this before we went on the air. I didn't even know that record existed until Cycle of the Moon came out.
Yeah, we Prophet was never, I guess to put it kindly, like the never really the most savvy band as far as like making the right decisions with who we allied ourselves with business-wise, who we signed with, and everything. Anyway, long story short, we had a guy managing us at the time, and really the only label that he could get a bite out of was Total Experience, which was like an R&B soul label, and they were affiliated. They had RCA distribution, so we were like, you know what? They're the only ones making the offer. We'll take it. So that album, when it came out, was actually fairly well distributed, believe it or not. But, you know, it wasn't the right label for the band, so.
So what led to the leaving of Dean and Russell coming into the band? How did that all transpire?
Dean, as much as I love the guy and I adored his voice, just really kind of just didn't have the same work ethic that we did. So at some point we had to part ways. And Russell had been in Prophet in 1981 when we were a cover band. When we were looking for somebody new to take over for Dean, it just so happened that, you know, he wasn't involved in anything pressing at the time. So we called him up, we got together, and it was just, you know, he just stepped right in, and it worked great.
I never knew that. I didn't realize he was in the band prior.
Yeah, most people don't know that, but he spent 7 months in the band in 1981.
I have some, you know, background with Dean Fasano because he was kind of resurrected back in the 90s by Khalil Turk that owned, or still does own, Escape Music. And he did the Message album and then some subsequent Message albums that Dean Fasano was on that I actually reviewed for a magazine in the UK at the time.
I tell you what, that first Message album he did with Richie is a great record, man. I listened to that a lot back in the day. Yes. Really good songs.
Yes. And I remember talking to Khalil back this is probably more like in the later 90s. And I remember him telling me he had a hard time getting him to commit to different things. But he did put out a few products with Dean, probably, in the later 90s on Escape Music.
Dean was a great guy. He had his demons, though, you know?
Right. So I wanted to now talk about album number 2, which was the album I think that pretty much put you guys on the map worldwide.
Cycle of the Moon.
Yes. Digress if you can.
Yeah. I mean, unless you have any particular questions.
I do. I just wanted your initial, like, you know, everything that led up to the recording. As a fan, I think I could speak for Mark too. We enjoy, and the people that listen to us, they enjoy knowing recording processes, how songs came about, you know, the whole vibe of the band, the different record label.
How did you guys get involved with Megaforce and then Atlantic?
Well, okay, I was friends with Eddie Trunk, you know, for a bit before, you know, Russell even got back in the band and we started thinking about making Cycle of the Moon. So Eddie was our entree into Megaforce. Megaforce is distributed by Atlantic. So there's the connection there. It's worth noting that we had reached out to Noel Monk, who had just come off a stint of managing Van Halen.
Right. From basically
we were
the
looking
beginning.
we were looking for new management, and it's one of those things. You just called him up and got him on the phone and say, hey, you know, we're such and such from New Jersey. Can we send you our stuff? Mm-hmm. And we sent them demos, and he really dug it. We were like, okay, well, I guess it's game on with Noel Monk.
Wow.
And so I don't really recall the process of shopping that one around, or if Eddie just said, look, you know, why don't you guys come on board with us? And we just went with it because it was a great label. John and Marsha, awesome people. We really liked everybody there. Yeah, it's a little hazy of how that came to be, but they were the most welcoming label at the time. So we said, you know, it's a great label. Let's just do it. They got Atlantic distribution.
Yeah, and kind of operating out of New Jersey. You know, you're a Jersey band, so it just seemed to make sense, and it was a good fit.
Yeah, so off we went, and we reached out to Spencer Profer, whose production we loved, who is located now in L.A. Our new manager's in L.A., so I guess we're going to L.A. Flew out there, got a really cool we got 1 or 2 apartments. I think it was 1. We were all crammed into 1. Really nice, though, out in L.A., and we set about to making the Cycle of the Moon. One thing I will note about the production of that record, we thought we were getting the production that we loved from the Quiet Riot records and the Motley Crue records, not knowing that production was due to Dwayne Barron behind the mixing console. So when we got in there with Spencer was not really a hands-on producer. You know, he had a couple guys in there, and to get it even to the way it sounded, the way you hear it sounding, was like pulling teeth.
Really?
To get it. Yeah, and it's still, I'm not happy with the production of that record. I think it's, you know, it lacks balls.
It could have a fatter bottom end. There's no question about it.
It's really lacking in bottom.
Yes.
And just to get it to sound like that was a constant war. in the studio. I mean, the guys were not really hard rock producers.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean that's the. I mean, really, sonically it sounds great. I'm just not really happy with the full end result of the tonality of that record.
Yeah, I never was either. I could have definitely had a bigger, fatter bottom than on the drums. And you guys had a bass player, in my opinion, that was head and shoulders over most guys of that era, and it didn't really show them off that much on that record.
Listen, I hear you, and I wrestled with that when it came out. I still kind of wrestled with it a little bit, but obviously it's a long time ago. I'm kind of over it at this point. But that's the reason that record didn't sound the way we wanted it to sound, because all the knob turning off the records that we like was Dwayne Barron. And then by the time we got to Spencer Profer Studio, Dwayne had gone down the street to work with Tom Werman. And that's that story in a nutshell.
Now, the expectations on your part, I'm just curious from this as a fan from the outside looking in at the time. The expectations on your part were what? Because the expectations on my part as a fan was that you guys were going to be fucking huge. And what was your expectations as the band?
Here's the thing. Like, don't forget, our expectations were already tempered by the fact that our first album didn't do well.
Right.
So we knew that was a very realistic possibility. I always said if Prophet had come out 10 years earlier, it would have been a whole different story. Second album comes out right in the thick of like hair metal.
Yes.
Like everything is either super heavy or it's Poison, or it's Motley Crue.
Right.
And we come out with this, somewhat of a keyboard heavy record doing this progressive-y kind of stuff.
Yes.
You're not really setting yourself up for success. But what are you going to do? You can't, take yourself back in time.
No, that's who you guys were. That was your sound. That was your signature sound.
Yeah, and despite that, we got a fair amount of respect. But, you couldn't sell it to radio like you could sell, Badlands or, whatever else was coming out at the time. Operation Mindcrime. A lot of great records that I loved. But, you put our record on next to that stuff, it's a little bit light.
The problem with 88 was everything was sold as a hair band.
Right.
And the bands that truly weren't were some of the best bands, and they were all, for the most part, success-wise, failures.
There was a few that, don't forget what came out at the same time. Guns N' Roses.
Right.
You had Badlands, who was not a hair band. You had Tesla, who was not a hair band.
Right.
So, but they were heavy as shit. They were heavier than us with better sounding records. So, whatever, man. It is what it is. I'm just giving you, my thoughts on it.
I appreciate that because this is what people want to know.
Yeah, we were keyboard centric, a very melodic band that would have fared a lot better 10 years earlier.
So now we move on to the third record, which I probably have more questions on this record than the first two, so bear with me.
Well, it's 1991 now.
Right.
I mean, the scene is changing a little bit. You guys weren't now with Atlantic or Megaforce anymore at that point. How was the third album released? That was just independently released?
I don't even remember. That album went through so much working and reworking, and this one's going to release it and this one's going to distribute it. At that point, like, I was kind of, in the mindset that this band isn't going to crack. It's not going to make it in the way that I wanted to make it. So Scott and I had a bunch of songs. We had a band that we were writing, 2 guitar music for. And that's why that ended up being a 2-guitar record. A lot of those songs were not destined to be Prophet songs, believe it or not.
What was that?
So,
what were you looking those songs to be? Just a new project?
Yeah, there was actually those songs went through a couple different projects, and ultimately, neither one of them and none of them got off the ground. So they ended up being Prophet songs by default. So that's how that record came about. We just figured, well, we have them. Prophet has somewhat of a name. Let's just make a Prophet album out of it, and that's what we did. And honestly, some of my favorite Prophet tunes are on that record.
Oh, me too.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
That's what I was going to question you about, is that with all the fanfare of the second record, which I do love, the record that I consistently always go back to is the third record, because there are so many hidden treasures in that album, and it didn't get the push that I'm sure you guys hoped it did, and me as a fan hoped it did. But I
honestly,
love that record.
Well, thank you so much. I didn't really expect it to get anything. There was kind of like not to downgrade it, but it was like we were putting that out, and we didn't really have much expectations for it because there was nobody behind it. You know what I mean? So we had the songs, figured might as well just get them out there. And we did a cool run of shows with them, with Dave on second guitar. Had a blast doing those shows.
Now, I saw you guys at Studio One in, I guess it was 1991. So Dave was on that show, right?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I remember playing there. I just don't remember what the lineup was.
Yeah.
I love the 2-guitar attack on that and the soloing and the heaviness of a lot of those songs.
It's heavy as shit.
It really is. I think if you listen to it, there's just so many great lead breaks on it, and it's a different record. And that's the thing with you guys. You did 3 albums, and every one is totally different than the one before it. And
it's the many faces of Prophet.
Yeah, no, which is very cool.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And like when you talk about like the trading off and like songs like Run with the Pack and what's that slow bluesy one? I can't remember the title of it. Drowning in a Bottle, the chorus goes. Anyway, those are 2 of my faves on that record.
Peace of Mind.
All the titles. Yeah, Peace of Mind. Exactly.
It took me a minute. I'm sitting there going through the lyrics in my head.
What was the writing process on that? Were these songs that you had a hand in, or?
Oh, absolutely. I always had a big hand in. Scott and I were always the primary writers, so that album was probably the same. Primarily Scott and I, or just Scott on his own.
Right. Now you guys, after, I mean, did you have any other like questions about that particular album, Tom? Because I wanted to kind of go after Recycled came out and what you guys did, after that, prior to kind of getting back together again many years later, and we'll get into that in a second.
The only questions I would have on it is, did you guys try to shop a bigger deal on it, or it kind of came down to the difference in the time?
Like I said, at that point, like the enthusiasm for the whole thing had waned quite a bit by that time. And it was just kind of be like, we'll put them out for whoever wants to take it and put it out. Right. So the songs don't rot on a shelf. You know what I mean? Just at least get them out there. Now, and at that point, after Recycled, we're coming pretty close to the point where I just said, I'm just not into it anymore. I'm not into trying to make it, not into songwriting. I think I want to say it was like 93, 94 is when I had mentally bailed from the whole thing. So we're right around the corner from that when Recycle come out.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you that because what did you do, after Recycle?
Musically, I had started writing on my own and recording my own stuff at Butterfield Studio in Red Bank. And I did that for probably like a year and a half or so. And when I found myself having a really hard time getting anywhere with that, and don't forget, now, grunge is in full swing by that time, like 93-ish.
Right.
Like, you're well into Pearl Jam and Nirvana. That's when I was like, you know what? I'm just worn out by the whole thing. And I started, as odd as it sounds, my passion started to lie with saltwater fishing rather than rock and roll. And eventually that turned into me getting a captain's license and embarking on a whole different career of charter fishing. I started a business.
Oh, wow.
And I did that for 11 years, and it was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, being on the ocean and being in that environment became my new passion, and just didn't really care to write or pursue. I was just out of the picture completely for like 23 years.
Now, what basically led to in 2012, I saw Prophet at Starland Ballroom, and I think it was kind of a dress rehearsal because you guys were going to be playing over in the UK with the Z Records Festival.
Yes.
So that was what led to you guys, regrouping and playing that show.
I don't know if it was the offer to come over there. It might have been that. Might have been the offer from Europe to come over and do that show. So we got together and, got guys back together and just, rehearsed a set. And I think the Starland was just kind of like a warm up for that.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, they wanted us over there, and we said, well, hell, why not? Why not go?
And you guys had never played there before, right?
Right. There was never any intention of really like making no intention at all of ever doing anything other than just going over and doing that.
Well, now the following year, you got invited back to play the Firefest Festival, right?
Yes.
What was that experience like?
That was insane. That was one of probably the most fun I've ever had doing a show, because the place was like this cool like little club / concert hall, like mostly an open orchestra, but there was like a balcony too, like a wraparound balcony.
Right. That's Rock City in Nottingham. It
was such a concert vibe. And dude, we came out and people knew our songs, like they're singing them. And I was like, this is a whole world that I never even knew existed. Like, my God. So it was like absolute rock stardom for a set, you know. And then like all the bands that played there, they set you up immediately. They drag you off stage and set you up behind your like merch signing table. And, you know, it was just crazy. It was like, just out of the blue, you get thrust into this like one day of absolute rock stardom.
Yeah.
So it was a blast. It really was.
So many bands I've heard say that over the years in regards to the Firefest Festival. It was such a successful venture that they put together, and it ran for a lot of years. And so many bands they brought back from the dead, so to speak, you know. And
yeah, we were one
everybody says that they felt, you know, it was the one day you got to kind of be the rock star again, you know.
Yeah, and the people were so genuinely psyched to have all the bands there. Like, the enthusiasm was just through the roof. So you couldn't help just, you know, smile and just be overjoyed through the whole thing.
Now, well, that led to kind of more activity from the band, because that was 2012 was the Z Records Festival. 2013 was the Firefest Festival, both in England. But you guys stayed together. I mean, I saw you guys a number of times between probably 2012 and 2016 around New Jersey playing shows. Stone Pony, Crossroads, even guys played at the Rock Carnival. So I saw you guys a bunch of times. And was there ever talk at that point? I mean, it's 4 years that you guys kind of played shows again and we're back together again. Was there ever talk of maybe doing anything as far as new music?
There was talk about it, but I just, you know, I wasn't into it. My heart wasn't into it. Just didn't want to do it. And little did I know that, you know, kind of work my way back to it, but on my own terms, following my own path.
Right.
You know, because that writing started in 2014.
Now, what did you do something in 2017? There was a video you put out. It was for a song, Off the Leash. What was that?
Off the Leash. Yeah, that was just a one-off. I mean, that came from the same writing stream that everything else since Reckless Abandon came from, but it wasn't going to be on a record, and I was just really, really psyched about that song. It was a tribute to Chris Cornell, and I just wanted to get it out. So I went in the studio, recorded it, and then shot a video for it, and just threw it out there. Got some pretty good response, too.
Yeah, I thought it was a great song, and I was surprised. I kind of remembered it, but I came across it today as I was just doing a little final like note taking here, and I was, wow, you know, that wasn't on anything else that I recall. I would have probably assumed it would have been on Reckless Abandon.
No, it was just a one-off, and I'll probably do that again here and there. You know, like after I put this album out and it runs its course, I might do a couple one-offs with performance videos. Because why not?
Sure, exactly.
It's like whatever I have the money to do, I'll do.
Right. Well, the music, the landscape is so different today. I mean, there's no rules. There's no, you know, set way of doing things anymore.
Yeah, I think you guys will find when you hear the new record that I'm kind of like, I found more, I'm finding more of an identity, like a recognizable style as a writer now. Like Reckless Abandon, I kind of thought was like all over the map stylistically. I think the styles started to come together a little more definitive on Songbook, and now with this one coming out, I think my direction as a writer is firmly established with this one.
Okay.
So you guys can see what you think when you hear it.
Great, looking forward to it for sure.
So, Ken, we were talking before we went on the record about our love for Southern rock, and off the top of your head, what's your top 5 Southern rock albums? And I'll tell you, Southern rock bands, and then I'll tell you mine.
Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers. I was never really big into Molly Hatchet or every time I do an interview, I always forget like names of bands that are Marshall Tucker.
That's one of mine too.
Skinner, Allman Brothers are my two biggies. Like from back, Outlaws I was big into.
Yeah,
like
me
in
too.
the late 70s.
I saw the Outlaws. I saw the Outlaws and the Outlaws and Molly Hatchet at the Capitol Theater, a double bill.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw Molly Hatchet with Angel, believe it or not. Talk about an oddball pairing.
That's an oddball pairing.
Wow.
And I don't know if you'd call them a Southern rock band, but they're kind of Southern. Cry of Love, their Brother album, is one of my top 5 favorite albums of all time. Absolutely love it.
Yes.
Little Feat, I don't know if you'd call them a Southern rock band because they were more of like a New Orleans type of vibe. And of course now, Blackberry Smoke, they're one of my favorite bands. Recently discovered, but I absolutely love them. Songwriting is just beyond compare, man.
Cry of Love was a great band. They had 2 different singers. I mean, the singer on the first album left, and I believe it was the guy that was in the lynch mob,
Robert Mason.
Robert Mason.
Yeah, Robert Mason. I'm actually pretty good friends with Robert. We had a couple projects together, and he came in. He came in and did the second one. Let's not forget about Blackfoot.
That was one of mine also.
Rick Medlock, one of the coolest rock stars of all time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just one of the most commanding, ass-kicking guys. Like, just a total badass.
Well, if you look at that early, not the real, like the prime time, like the Blackfoot Strikes album and Marauder.
Yep.
That band was just, I mean, it was heavy
ferocious.
Metal infused with Southern rock.
Yeah, just they were absolutely friggin' ferocious, man. And I never saw that lineup with Charles Hargreaves on guitar.
Greg
and,
T. Greg
Walker. T. Walker.
Right.
That was a ridiculous lineup.
Yeah, that was a great band. That was a terrific band. Yeah, I mean, you have the same bands as me. It's exactly the same lineup of the top 5.
Yeah, right on.
I wanted to ask you something too. Tom and I were talking about this, and I don't really recall this, but in 2013, you got together to record a song, or maybe it was something that was recorded in can. I don't know. You tell me. But you did a song for the Kiss tribute, a cancer benefit album. Tell us a little bit about that. Did.
It was just, I got asked to do it, and I just went to do it. There's really no more story about it.
Okay, and that had Mark Janillo on.
I think it was Mark was like the conduit to that. But he put us together, and we just went and do it. Had a great time. I thought it sounded great. But yeah, there's no real story behind that.
Oh, okay. Now and Tom and I wanted to talk about this too, and I guess the origins and the history kind of Edgar Cayce, Edgar Cayce band. What was that came out of Prophet not being able to use the name? Was there something? What was the story?
You're close, but no. We came back from doing the first record. And it was just, we were waiting on it to be released. So you can't just go back out as Prophet and do, because now you're trying to be a recording band. So now you got to let your album come out. You got to, try to get a tour, all that shit.
Right.
So in the meantime, we were itching to play. So Scott and I got together with Eric Farrow, who was the drummer in White Tiger at the time, went on to play with T.T. Quick. And we said, let's just throw a band together, just let's do, whatever we feel like doing cover wise. And we started out just playing like these little neighborhood bars. And that band through the years, through different incarnations, eventually turned into, because the timing was right, that giant Central Jersey art stock, insane scene between the Birch Hill and the Playpen.
Right.
That was like it was like an East Coast Sunset Strip.
Yes, yeah.
With the drugs and the booze and the girls, and like it was absolute debauchery and insanity. It really was, and like you'll still, it still runs to people all the time, and just that's all they want to talk about is how the greatest time of their life. That started, I want to say, in like '87 and ran up through, probably had a good run of 5 years, and then a couple years in the slow death mode. into the 90s. But yeah, when that was cooking on all cylinders, that was really something to behold. Good times.
Yeah, I mean I mean Edgar Cayce was considered a legendary cover band on the Jersey scene for sure. As well as Prophet was
we were
huge
in Edgar Cayce was huge in 2 bars. That was it. The playpen, and we were like the Route 9 corridor, the playpen and the Birchill, and that was it.
Okay.
You took us outside of that area, and I mean, we did okay up in North Jersey too, but nothing like we did down there. It was just everything was right, everything was perfect. Like people wanted live metal covers, and there was nobody doing it. We just, we did it. We stepped up, and it just, add cocaine and alcohol, and you have that explosion. No joke, though. I mean,
no, I know. I know.
I know.
Well, Kenny, we appreciate this talk tonight. Can you tell us, like I said before, how can people find out about your new solo album, Conflicted, that's due out early next year? You said you have a social media site or a website or anything?
Yeah, I have a website, my own website, kennydubman.com. Really the conduit for me getting the information out there as to where to find it and when it comes out is Facebook and Instagram. Okay, great. So if you're on Facebook, it's Ken Dubman. On Instagram, it's Kenny Dubman. Don't ask me why. Facebook started with a long time years ago, and I don't even know if I'm able to change an existing account to Kenny from Ken, but whatever. If you go on there, you can't help but find me on either one. So excellent. Well, we appreciate this talk tonight. We really do, and thanks for sharing some time and telling us, what's going on with you right now, up to date, and also going back into the Prophet days. Guys, absolutely my pleasure.
Thanks, Ken. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for giving us your time.
And I can't wait to listen to it. Let me know when this is going to air so I can pump it and send people to the right spot to listen to it.
Absolutely,
definitely will do.
All right, gentlemen, you guys have a great night.
Take care, Ken.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.